So, hey guys, today we're going to be talking about the Duelist Cup once again. And today we're going to be talking about techs and cards you should look out for, cards that, well, you should play. So, first off, we're going to be starting with, well, what we might be playing against. So, right now, Ritual Beast is not being played that much. It was played a lot more a while back, but it's just fallen off a cliff. Mostly, I guess probably because Shifter is now at 1 and no longer at 2, so the consistency for that has gone way down. And Ritual Beast honestly aren't like that insanely good. And the N word they make specifically, that's also not that good. What they really excel at it right now, in my opinion, is the turn that comes after. It's turn 3, where Ritual Beast really shines, and that's because usually you can have a Spiritual Beast Tamer Lara in the graveyard, and you can banish this through special summoning Nochi Drago, and then that sets up like all your plays, and also all your guys recycle themselves one way or another. So if we were to banish the ulti Ray Ritari here, we can special summon it back later, and we can do that like a variety of ways, banishing it in the graveyard and then special summoning it from banished. So there's that, and then of course Kanahawk just keeps putting itself back into the extra deck, so you could be summoning the same Kanahawk like 15 times in one turn. Well, is it 15 or around 10? Well, sometimes we need to exaggerate around here. So no longer do we really need to worry about Ritual Beast as much, because honestly, Ritual Beast isn't like that good going second. So I guess in that sense, like without Shifter, they've fallen off. Not much to say about that. And then the deck a lot of people will be talking about, because you know this is like kind of like, I mean, technically you could play other going second decks, but the one that's most played right now is going to be Tenpai. So Tenpai, essentially, the engine, like most of it doesn't matter unless you have like Ash Blossom Joe Spring, in which case you just drop Ash on like literally whatever. Honestly, there's zero reason to hold Ash Blossom Joe Spring against this deck. You just drop it whenever you can. So, for example, if we see Tenpai Dragon Pydra activating, just drop Ash on this. There's no point in waiting on Ash unless your opponent has specifically Sangan Summoning and Sangan Kaiman in their hand already. Like, shouldn't really matter, right? If they're trying to use Genriku's effect to special summon, then Ash that as well. Like, yeah, that's about it for their engine. Their non-engine, however, a bit more annoying. We have like back row removal, we have different forms of removal, hand traps, and they run these in large quantities, and that's about it, right? But the board breakers that you probably most want to look out for are Super Poly, because Super Poly is non-targeting removal that is not even respondable. So the best way to play around Super Poly is to make sure you have, if possible, well, you can't avoid all of these, but you want to avoid having dark monsters on your end board, so try to stay away from that, because Starving Venom. And then there's also Dragostapelia, and then there's Garura, so you don't want monsters with the same type and attribute if possible. And then we have Mud Dragon, which is same type, different attribute, or was it? No, it was same attribute, different type. So try to avoid that as well, if possible. Well, you want to avoid, at least if we can't avoid like a Starving Venom, try to avoid setting up a board where you can get hit by Super Poly and your opponent can summon either the Garura or the Mud Dragon, because Super Poly is at 3, and you know it also adds Dragoon, so there's a legitimate reason behind playing Super Poly with Starving Venom or like a Dragostapelia. So that's something else you should look out for. And then, well, let's see. In terms of hand traps right now, some of the hand traps we should really look out for, once again, Bistils. Bistils are seeing a bit of a comeback. In my experience personally, I've encountered a lot more Bistils in the, well, around when Shifter got banned. They're just being played a lot more for one reason or another. There's a whole lot of reasons, but I think the primary one is one, Shifter, and then two, Gimmick Puppet. So this is very effective against Gimmick Puppet specifically. If you don't want to get sacked or FDK'd, then Bistils have essentially zero counterplay for Gimmick Puppet. So if I'm playing like a Gimmick Puppet deck, I'm going to be summoning, summoning this guy, and then we'll rank this guy up with its own effect. And this might be non-respondable, and also your monster effects don't work on them because field spell. Then we'll rank up into this guy, detaching this guy, and then if we bash this guy, you lose one activation of your rank up magic essentially, and that can be enough to just stop the FTK. Then at this point, you might only have to deal with the whatchamacallit, the trap service puppet. But if your opponent doesn't open the Rouge doll, you can banish this instead. So we're going to assume our opponent is going to do Little Soldiers to send Rouge doll, and if our opponent does Little Soldiers send Rouge doll, like 99% of the time I feel like this is legit their way to access the Rouge doll. So it's pretty good in general to just banish the Rouge doll in this case. And Crow as well is pretty good. So you can just Crow, banish the rank up magic. So I'm assuming for the most part that Gimmick Puppet is the reason people are playing a lot more copies of like Crow and Vistals. Just, yeah. No one wants to get FTK'd, and of course you won't be able to cross out nor called by against my Bistals, so pretty useful. And of course Magma builds obscene advantage anyways, just in general. So, you know, like Magma effect adds Lubellion adds Druid Worm, and then we can special summon Druid Worm, banishing like potentially follow-up or important key cards from the graveyard. And of course you can't call by this. And well, it depends exactly how you play it, but then we can of course Lubellion to tribute the Druid Worm to trigger the Druid Worm, and then we can set Branded Regained, and it's just advantage. One way or another, we could get free draws for the rest of the duel potentially. We can have Magma keep coming back for link material and other material, just whatever. So there's that. But getting into the text that I think you should try fitting into your deck. So right now, I don't think Kashtira is actually that good, right? But right now, I don't see why there isn't a reason to do this, but if you can fit in this small engine into whatever deck you're playing, you should go ahead and do so. So if we have either Kashtira Unicorn or Pressured Planet Razoth, we can search Unicorn, and this is the only catch we really need to play. So this will punish mostly like Tenpai and stuff. Well, it's not necessarily just Tenpai, it's just anyone that's willing to try trading hand traps with you. And also, because your opponent might be lacking knowledge, they might imperm the Kashtira Unicorn. And if they do so, then that's an imperm your main engine won't have to deal with. So the main idea here is that we're just going to open one of these three cards. This one is a Garnet, so technically if you really don't want to, you don't have to play this. But this can be used for extension and stuff. So let's assume like maybe we're playing Punk with this. We'd be able to special summon the Unicorn back after our combo and make a Baron, because, you know, 3 + 7 = 10. So there's that idea. But the primary thing we want here is because Tenpai right now, they're playing their deck in a specific way. So notably, in the extra deck, it's very common right now to be playing just one-ofs in your Tenpai list. So let's see. The main guys we want to be banishing are going to just simply be the one of Sengenpai Transcendent Dragon and the one of Sengenpai Biden Dragon. So if you banish all of your opponent's Biden Dragons, it's a lot harder for them to find lethal. So we're able to get to turn 3, and the turn 4 isn't that worrisome either because your a Tenpai opponent will run out of gas pretty quick anyways, and they have a much less in the way of options without the Synchro 7. So if we banish all of those out, we're good. Sometimes we can just banish out the Sengenpai cards and you're just solid, right? So that'll be probably, it depends on exactly what your opponent opens, of course, but for the most part, it should be like turn 1, we can Kash Dura Unicorn, confirm our opponent's playing Tenpai, and then adjust accordingly if we can. If we have some kind of pivot play that's better, we can do that against the Tenpai. If our opponent's not on Tenpai, I mean, it's still good if we can look at their extra deck and kind of figure out what they're playing from that, and also just banishing their key cards. So Kashira Unicorn, I think, if you can play this, pretty S tier, right? Well, in terms of like attack. And the other thing that you might want to be playing, well, it depends exactly what you're playing, right? But I mean, DD Crow, yeah, you're going to want to look into playing DD Crow, I think. So DD Crow, of course, is actually pretty good against just a lot of things in general. So it's not like absolutely killer. Like it won't beat every single deck and their mother, right? But this is in general good against a lot of decks for like some kind of niche reason. So for example, against Tenpai, there are 2 really good points for us to Crow if we're looking at Tenpai, and then the aforementioned Gimmick Puppet. Well, you kind of have to figure this out on your own, I guess, but if we're trying to reborn, like usually I guess the target's Pydra, with the Sengenpai Biden Dragon, we can just banish that, and then our opponent is just stuck with just a Biden, and it's pretty awkward for our opponent here. And then the other option past that one is that we can banish the Sengenpai Biden Dragon, and then this just simply stops our opponent from having the proper levels to make Trident Dragon. So those are all things to kind of be aware of. And of course, we'll just throw this one in for fun. If we're against Curly and our opponent, well, this actually targets a Curly quick play spell in the graveyard, we can just banish it, and then for Lily effect is hard once per turn. So there's no activation for this, and you're kind of sitting on what might as well be a crappy vanilla monster. So yeah, a lot of generally good usage here, I guess, right? And technically, I guess this would be psychotic to play for like this reason alone, but technically if Gimmick Puppet was like I guess meta, we could use like Boom Mac to detach from a Gimmick Puppet and mess up the FDK. So that's kind of neat, I guess. It's not really a big thing, but if Pearly or I guess Gimmick Puppet really get up hand, we have Boomok, which also shares the quality of not being able to get hit by a Called by the Grave. So yeah, that's pretty useful. And because of this meta, I don't know exactly what's going to be played. We're kind of still adjusting, I guess. But yeah, Troll, I feel like has increased in play a little bit as well. I'm not exactly sure what you're playing Troll against because it's not effective against necessarily all the decks you'll be seeing in the Duelist Cup here. But yeah, the main thing we're just going to be having to worry about, I think, is just, well, in general, I don't think there's any decks or anything that are super threatening, but I suppose the one thing I should mention is that this deck is pretty annoying. So we have Ostinato over here. So essentially, you're playing a Melodious Engine, and you're using this to set up Secret Village. So any list that does this, feeling pretty sinful. It's usually a Pendulum list that's playing Melodious cards, and you use them to essentially set up the Secret Village. So the counterplay to this, I guess, is to either just draw better than your opponent and hand trap them into Oblivion, I guess, or we can simply board break. And board breaking this is a bit rough because they usually end on 1 to 2 Omni Negates plus an Apollosa. So you can't Forbidden Droplet this, but I guess you could activate evenly, but you would have to bait out the Omnis first, and there are Monster Negates as well. So yeah, that's rough. So yeah, just simply draw better than your opponent, or do not lose the coin flip, I guess. There's not a whole lot that you can do about this. This is really rough to face because there are a bunch of 1-card starters that you genuinely, I don't think, can let resolve. Like that's kind of how it feels, I guess, but it is what it is. In case you are facing these lists, I believe the best you can do is a well-timed Nibiru. This might be all we can do, yeah, because Ash Blossom Joe Spring can't do it when our opponent is running this much gas. We just have to really be a toggle Andy, I suppose, as they call it, you know? So just really practice setting up your chains and hiding your chains to perfectly execute a really nasty Nibiru. That's about all we can hope for, I guess, against these lists. So yeah, my recommendations are probably, well, right now, a lot less of the decks that can play a game around Nibiru are being played. So just Nibiru, honestly, a 3 of Nibiru is not even that bad right now. So I recommend playing Pistols, DD Crow, Ishtira Unicorn, and Nib, if possible. So if any of these sound like they will fit into your deck, then yeah, consider putting them in. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.